which boggles my mind, but I can only speak from my personal experience. I have never let my kids have fluoride on their teeth in their toothpaste or at the dental office, and we filter our water. And anecdotally, I'm only a sample size of 6 kids, but none of them have ever had a cavity, for what it's worth. But I'm curious your take on this specific marketing of fluoride to children and how we as moms can kind of opt out of that.
The American Dental Association has gone back and forth on saying you should not, for infant formula, don't make it with fluoridated water. And then they said, oh, it's okay, you can make it with fluoridated water. So I don't think they really know, but they want it to be safe, just like they've always wanted fluoride to be safe. But I think the science just isn't there. Like it's just too much of a risk. And like you said, you can prevent cavities just by having really solid nutrition and restricting sugar and carbohydrates from your children's diet. So it's really not worth it. And I think the nursery water with fluoride is just really, really a bad idea.
Agreed. And that would be my challenge to any moms listening who have been on the fluoride bandwagon before, especially with ingesting fluoride. If you can acknowledge that you think that ingesting fluoride could help the teeth by being consumed internally, then it's logical that you would also have to consider that what we ingest in our food and our supplements also affects the teeth when we take it internally. And I've written about that. There's a lot of research about fat-soluble vitamins and minerals and how they interact with our saliva and inside the teeth to create stronger teeth and to avoid cavities. So I would say research that if you've been just relying on fluoride as a dental aid to help avoid cavities. There are other ways that I would argue, based on the research, are more effective to begin with. This podcast is brought to you by Mother Dirt's amazing AO Plus Mist. Many of us realize just how important the gut microbiome is to health, and we're familiar with things like probiotics and fermented foods that can help optimize gut health. But did you know that our bodies are made up of many bacterial ecosystems, and that without them, our health would crumble? Our skin is the largest ecosystem or microbiome, and often it needs a little help. Modern hygiene products deplete the necessary beneficial bacteria on our skin, and the AO Plus Mist patented ammonia oxidizing bacteria, or AOB, works by consuming the ammonia in your sweat and producing beneficial byproducts for your skin, which brings balance to your skin biome and helps restore this natural ecosystem. What I love about this mist is that it has almost completely removed the need for me to wear deodorant, since ammonia is the stinky part of sweat. This has become a vital part of my skincare routine. All Mother Dirt products are plant-based with minimal ingredients, and they are gentle and effective and great for the whole family. You can save 20% on your first purchase with the code FREESHIP20 by going to motherdirt.com/wellnessmama to learn more and to buy now. Again, that's motherdirt.com/wellnessmama. This episode is brought to you by Perfect Keto. I have heard from a lot of you who are trying the keto diet right now, and Perfect Keto has several products that makes it so much easier and tastier. They have keto-friendly sports drinks with 0 additives, 0 carbs, and only high-quality ingredients. And I've gotten so many questions about this. They also have exogenous ketones that raise blood ketone levels up to 1.5 millimoles per liter. So that would be simulating a fast. A lot of people use these exogenous ketones to increase mental performance and energy production and fat burning without the need to do extended fasting. And Perfect Keto really just helps make ketosis available to everyone, everywhere, all the time without the need to do extended fasting, like I said. You can check out these and all of their other products at perfectketo.com/healthymoms. And if you use the code healthymoms, all uppercase, you can save 20% on any order. So we talked about the common sources of fluoride exposure and how we can filter our own water and what we can do at home. Is there anything else we can do? I know that you're working on a petition, but is it possible that we can ever reverse this trend completely and get rid of fluoride in our drinking water across the country?
I do think so. I think it starts at the local level. Like I mentioned, they're already having success with that in in cities around the country. And moms really have an advantage there because I think when a mom talks to a political representative, they know how serious you are about health issues. So I think that's a great place to start, is just by calling local politicians. I talked to one woman recently and she said, when I I talked to my local representative and I told them about fluoride and how dangerous it is and that I didn't want it in the water. And they really thanked me because they didn't know this information. So I think just sharing this other side of the story with your local representatives can go a long way. And there are a lot of towns who are changing their mind about fluoride. And then on the national level, I started a petition at change.org just because I didn't want people to get all riled up about fluoride and not have anything they could do about it. So if you go to petition.projectfree.me, it will route to the petition at change.org and you'll have a chance to sign that. And I just think as soon as the federal government stops recommending it, they can just say, we're going to leave it up to the states or we'll leave it up to the individual water municipalities. I think it's going to just end because it costs a lot of money to add fluoride to the water. These chemicals are really dangerous. There's been a lot of incidents where, it's dangerous for the workers there who are adding the fluoride to the water. And if sometimes there are accidental like overfluoridation situations where people have died or, people with kidney disease will have a really hard time processing that extra fluoride in the water. So I don't think towns necessarily want to be doing it, but they're just doing it because it's recommended and, they're trying to help the community prevent cavities. So I think once we get over that like tipping point where enough people know the full story of fluoridation, we will be able to end it on the national level. And and the other thing, I think it's just having conversations, like you and I are having right now, sharing our experience, because when people, realize that you've done your research and that you've seen how this affects your body, or, people that are sensitive to it, we're starting to be more familiar with all of these crazy allergies. So I think the idea that people are sensitive to fluoride isn't that foreign to most people anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like my reason comes from the thyroid background again, and that's part of my medical record that I'm actually supposed to avoid fluoride and even too much iodine for reasons that have to do with uptake and thyroid tissue. But the point being that there are people like you and I who are affected by this in a negative way. And for people who still think it's a good idea, they can always they can buy fluorinated water, or they can use fluoride at the dentist's office, or use toothpaste with fluoride, whereas we can't easily opt out of it right now. And I think that's the important thing to consider. Even if you're listening and you are pro-fluoride, that's fine. And obviously your decision, and I respect that, but that's still a decision that's being made for a lot of people that we cannot easily opt out of. A lot of people can't afford huge water filters that cost thousands of dollars to avoid fluoride, and their health is suffering in the meantime. So I love that you are bringing awareness to this. And I'm hopeful that through things like your petition and, like you said, all of us working on a grassroots level, that maybe we can see some big changes on this in the future. And also, I think that's a great point when it comes to any aspect of health or life. Like, rather than waiting for the federal government to step in and do something, we can all start making changes, certainly in our own homes, and then beyond that in our own communities and states, because you can just work a lot more easily and more quickly when you start with the grassroots level and build from there. So I love that you are bringing awareness about this. I'm curious, another thing I like to ask toward the end of interviews is, are there other things about your area of expertise, so fluoride in this case, that you feel like people don't really know or understand?
There's so much about fluoride that I don't think people understand just because we've been so focused on fluoride as the dental treatment. But I think the biggest things is they don't understand the pollution angle. So that really changes things when you learn that it was the USDA said that, surely fluoride has caused more damage to domestic crops than any other air pollutant. So it wasn't just one air pollutant, it was a major air pollutant. And then I think people don't know that it's a pesticide. That really seems to shock people, because then you think, wow, it kills pests. What is it doing in my body? That's another big red flag. And you can actually see the chronic fluoride intoxication on your teeth, on your children's teeth. So dental fluorosis is a very common sign that you've been exposed to too much fluoride during those years where your teeth were forming. And I actually have dental fluorosis. So that shows when I was little, I was consuming too much fluoride. And in the 80s, it used to be about a quarter of adolescents, had this dental fluorosis. Sometimes it can be like a dark stain on the tooth, or it can be like an opaque pattern where your tooth kind of looks clear in certain parts, or like bright white splotches. So it manifests in different ways. And it used to be about a quarter of children had dental fluorosis, and they did another study in the early 2000s, and it had risen to over 40%. So it's rising the more fluoride infiltrates our food supply through pesticides and through the water supply. So those are just a few of the things that I think people should definitely know about fluoride.
Yeah, no kidding. And I'm so glad, like I said, that you're raising awareness about this. And I have a few friends. I mentioned one who's a really good friend who's a dentist who they have opted out of offering fluoride or requiring it in their office. And I have so much respect for that because I think just like every other area of research with fluoride, we'd actually do need to reevaluate fluoride in toothpaste and in dental treatments and see if there's a more effective and least less harmful option now that we've got so much more research to look at. So I love that you are bringing light to all of this. Slightly unrelated, but I'm also curious if there is a book other than your own, which will obviously be linked in the show notes, but that has had a really big impact on you or that you would recommend.
There's an herbalist called Stephen Herod Buhner. He's written a ton of books, mostly about plants. You know, one of my favorites is Plant Intelligence in the Imaginal Realm. He's just really, everything he writes is so fascinating. He wrote a really popular book on Lyme disease, but he wrote a book called Ensouling Language, which is about how to write nonfiction. And before I wrote my book, you know, I didn't consider myself a writer. I considered myself an analyst, and I didn't even know if I could write a book. So I read a lot about how to write nonfiction in particular. And his book really made a big impression on me, just about how to not just present information, but try to like enthrall your reader, you know, and try to really pull them into a story. So I love that book. It's called Ensouling Language. And actually, when I finished my book, I sent it to him and I said, I'm sure you have like a big shelf of books that were inspired by your book, Ensouling Language. Just put this on the shelf next to him, you know, thank you so much for writing your book. And to my surprise, he read it and he ended up writing the foreword for when it was officially published in May. So I love that book and I definitely recommend it for anyone who's thinking about writing, or it's really great for just any kind of creative work. It helps you tap into like what is really fascinating about your particular subject matter and how to present that to other people.
Nice. I love that. I have not read that and it sounds fascinating. So I'm going to add it to my list. And lastly, if there was a piece of advice that you could spread far and wide, what would it be and why? And a couple 100,000 people will hear this podcast, so I can at least help you get it to them. But what would that advice be and why?
Oh, my advice is we need to end public water fluoridation right now. It is affecting our children and our society in adverse ways that we don't even know. So that's why I'm doing this. That's why I wrote the book. And that's why, I'm doing these podcasts. Is really not in my wheelhouse, but I just really believe that we need to end fluoridation and that it's going to have long-standing implications that we have no idea.
I agree with you. And I know all the things that we've talked about, especially your book and, both of your books and your petition. I will make sure those are linked in the show notes at wellnessmama.fm. So if you are listening and don't have the ability to write it down, just find the links there. And where can people find you, Melissa, if they want to learn more?
Well, the website is hiddencauseofacne.com, and that has links to the Hidden Cause of Acne on Amazon. I'm just about to, by the time this airs, I will have released my second book called F is for Fluoride. And this is just like a little children's book style book, because readers of my first book who all of a sudden want to avoid fluoride, it's really hard to explain that to your friends and family who think you're crazy that your acne is caused by fluoride. So this is just a little book that you can share with people that tells the story, the pollution story behind fluoridation, that explains how it's a pesticide. It explains all of this adverse research. And it kind of answers the question of, how could we have been wrong for so long? It's just amazing. Like doesn't seem possible, but this little book is designed to like get those main points across. So I don't have a website for that one, but I will, I'm sure you'll have the link somewhere. You could just find it on Amazon or wherever you buy books.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that one is linked as well. But Melissa, thank you so much for your work and for spreading the word about this. I know it can be, like I said, a controversial topic at times. And I think you are bringing such a valid and research-backed and calm perspective that's so needed in this topic, and that hopefully will continue to affect change, hopefully eventually at the national level. So I really appreciate your work and what you do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show, Katie. I really appreciate it.
And thanks to all of you for listening, and I hope to see you again next time on the Wellness Mama podcast. If you're enjoying these interviews, would you please take 2 minutes to leave a rating or review on iTunes for me? Doing this helps more people to find the podcast, which means even more moms and families can benefit from the information. I really appreciate your time, and thanks as always for listening.